Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. A hired hand who is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. A hired hand runs away because a hired hand does not care for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. For this reason, the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it up again. I have received this command from my Father. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Can everybody hear me? We seem to have some fluctuation in our internet connection. If you can't hear me, wave your hand. Okay. Well, today is the fourth Sunday of Easter. And every year when we get to this Sunday, we have a Good Shepherd reading. And in fact, this is known as Good Shepherd Sunday. And these readings from John are the ones that we use on Good Shepherd Sunday. And it's, I think, really important to kind of know the context and the whole story that we have about the Good Shepherd. Because the Good Shepherd story, all these verses about the Good Shepherd, are chapter 10 of John, and chapter 9 of John, the very beginning of chapter 9 is where the story really starts. So this story takes up 2 whole chapters in John's Gospel, which I think helps us to understand how significantly important this idea is in Jesus' ministry. So at the beginning of chapter 9, you all know the story of the man born blind, but just bear with me, I'll summarize it a little bit. Jesus, as usual, is being a radical troublemaker. So the man born blind encounters Jesus on Sunday, or on the Sabbath, I should say, which would have been Saturday. And Jesus heals him on the Sabbath. So the Pharisees immediately begin an investigation. And they start out divided. Either Jesus is a miracle worker from God, doing signs from God, or he has a demon. And there's no compromise on that. They insist that people choose a side. You're either in or you're out. And because they want to get the whole story, they question the parents of this man who's born blind. Was he really born blind is the first question they asked them. And the parents acknowledge the man is their son, but they won't vouch for Jesus. They won't vouch for this healing miracle that has taken place. They say back to the Pharisees, we know this is our son and that he was born blind, but we do not know how it is that now he sees, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him. He is of age and will speak for himself. Goes on to say the parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews. For the Jews had already agreed that anyone who confused Jesus or confessed Jesus to be the Messiah would be thrown out of the synagogue. They were so afraid of being thrown out that they, instead of answering for their son, they threw him under the bus. And so the Pharisees turned to the blind man, and the blind man testifies to Jesus. And he says, here is an astonishing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. God does not listen to sinners, but does listen to one who worships and obeys his will. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. And on that note, the Pharisees drive out the man born blind. And this is where we come to chapter 10, and Jesus begins this teaching on the Good Shepherd. And what he says about the Good Shepherd is, I am the Good Shepherd, the true shepherd. And of course, the implication is that the Pharisees are false shepherds. Jesus says, I am not a thief or a bandit. The sheep know my voice. And he says, I am the Good Shepherd, the ideal shepherd, not like these bad shepherds, the Pharisees. The Pharisees are the hired hand. They are the thieves and the bandits. They run away in the face of danger. And of course, that makes the Pharisees pretty angry. So the story ends at the end of chapter 10 with division. Again, the Jews are divided over the words of Jesus, and they are saying he has a demon and is out of his mind. Why listen to him? Whereas others were saying, these are not the words of one who has a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? So the Jews end divided on Jesus' identity. So we hear Jesus making this radical call, this radical challenge to the Jewish authorities, calling the Pharisees thieves and bandits and strangers. The sheep will run away from them. They kill and destroy and steal the sheep. They're hired hands who run away, and the people are scattered, snatched and scattered. The Pharisees do not care for the sheep. Now, in contrast to that is the Good Shepherd. Jesus, the Good Shepherd, who lays down his life. He's already beginning to talk about the crucifixion, well, before this even, but he talks about laying down his life. He also talks about entering by the gate as the legitimate shepherd. And as he says, he calls the sheep by name, and the sheep know his voice. He leads them to good pasture. He goes ahead of them. I know my own, and my own know me. He lays down his life for the sheep. The contrast, of course, is strong and bitter for these Pharisees. It's obvious for everyone to see what Jesus is saying. And of course, they're very angry about it. They are threatened by Jesus, this man who does this incredible miracle of healing the man born blind. This backs up his claim of being the Good Shepherd. But in the eyes of the Pharisees, Jesus is preaching blasphemy and heresy, overturning the social order and inviting political rebellion. So there's only one thing to do: get rid of him. And so the next thing you know, there is a plot to have him killed. And they are leading the charge to have Jesus crucified. Jesus was a dangerous man. So in the midst of all that tension, Jesus calls the sheep to follow. Our responsibility is to follow this radical, dangerous, overturning Messiah, the shepherd that calls us to follow him through thick and thin. Throughout the Gospels, we hear Jesus calling us to follow. Put down your nets and follow me. Follow me and I will make you fishers of people. Sell all you have, give the money to the poor, and follow me. Whoever serves me must follow me. Follow me and leave the dead to bury the dead. And of course, pick up your cross and follow me. Again and again, Jesus calls us to follow the Good Shepherd. We are called to follow the one who miraculously heals people, the one who teaches the way of God, the one who has compassion on the crowds and feeds them, the one who calms the storm, the one who speaks truth to power, the one who washes feet, and the one who gives his life for you. You know, in our world today, there are many people and things that call us to follow. People such as corrupt political leaders or bad cops, or people selling products that promise to make life wonderful, or sports heroes, or gurus. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a fan or following people, what they're doing, and knowing about who they are, but often we're fooled and we follow with all of our being. We get so tangled up in that bad shepherd that we don't even realize this is what we're doing. But really, we are like sheep without a shepherd, not knowing which way to turn, not knowing who to follow. And isn't that true in our day today? It's hard to know how to respond to the pandemic. It's hard to know what to do about bad cops who threaten and kill men because of their skin color. It's hard to overcome political division. It's hard to know what to do about systemic racism. It's hard to understand why someone would commit a mass shooting. It's hard to know what to do about global warming. And I could go on and on about the things that we deal with today. And boy, do we need a shepherd. Sometimes we are like, in these times, it feels like we are without that shepherd. It is for times like this that Jesus, the Good Shepherd, comes into the world. More than anything else, Christ comes into a broken world as the Good Shepherd to lead us through it. These are the kinds of tragedies that happen, and the shepherd comes to lead us through. So we can trust in the promises of the Good Shepherd, God in our midst, grace and truth. We can trust that God is walking this journey right next to each one of us. We can trust that God is filling the world with God's holy presence. We can trust that the great comfort is holding every broken heart. These are the promises of the Good Shepherd. And the Good Shepherd is with us even when tragedy overshadows all else. God makes God's dwelling in these very broken places and calls us to follow. So we can be hopeful even when things appear hopeless and dark. The light of the Good Shepherd has come into the world, and once again, we are in great need of it. So we can choose to follow the Good Shepherd, and with the Lord as my shepherd, I will want for nothing. With the Lord as my shepherd, there will be green pastures and still waters. With the Lord as my shepherd, I am refreshed and revived as I follow in the path of the Good Shepherd. And even in the dangers of the shadow of death, I'm not afraid. I know God is with me. There is plenty no matter what. I have God's goodness and mercy around me, and I will dwell with God forever. These are great words of comfort in a world of darkness. And we are not alone, scattered, or snatched away by the thieves and bandits of this world. We are guided by our Good Shepherd at every turn. Amen.